Let's Feed, in partnership with Golden Valley Agricultural Research Trust, GART, and Farmfeed Limited, brings to you a free webinar. Join us as we discuss the role of forage and pastures in livestock nutrition. We also look at cultivated pastures and how to successfully propagate them, plus more. Looking forward to seeing you there.
You can let me know if you can see what's on the screen. I hope everybody can see it. Okay, I think more people are now coming. Apologies that the link was sent a bit late, but I tried my best to just share it extensively. Maybe that's why the initial turnout is slightly low, but still we thank you for making it. We still appreciate whatever number we will be is still enough. It's better one than none. Please just tell me if you can see what's on the screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So for those that were not here yesterday, Farmfeed was responsible for yesterday's lesson, and I decided to just pick out 2 slides which I felt would summarize or would give an idea to people that didn't manage to be there yesterday. I think it's just important that we understand what was happening yesterday, so that we understand why today is also happening.
Cool. What's side?
Before I go further, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Siliko Hope Kibombwe. I am an animal scientist by profession, and I have spent the whole of my career. I've spent it in being an animal nutrition consultant. I previously worked with livestock services, and I'm currently working as a freelance consultant, and hence the nature of what I'm doing today is it's just to play my part in disseminating information, which I feel it's critical in the times we're living. Let's Feed is a WhatsApp group that I started some time back whilst I was at livestock. Let me just mute somebody. Oh, sorry, I think I'm unable to do that. Yes, so Let's Feed is a WhatsApp group that I had started, and this is the first time we are having such engagements. I thought it's about time that I use the platform to bring together experts and farmers and share information, because it's pointless to hold it to ourselves when the people that need it are just in our midst. So let me just get back to recapping yesterday, so that I don't take too much time from Dr. Mkumbuta's time. So yesterday, there was a question of what forage is, and according to what Farmfeed shared yesterday, a forage is any plant material that is grown and harvested primarily for feeding livestock. Any plant material that is grown and harvested primarily for feeding livestock. And these plant materials can be consumed directly by grazing or harvested and stored for feeding at a later time. So those 2 points, you can just digest them, but I think they're clear enough. Then another slide that I wanted to share, which let me just share another one. Another slide that I thought needed to be emphasized For people that felt like they missed so much, let me just share one more. Okay, so this one as well, which highlighted just the importance of forage in ruminant diets. So in case, again, there's people that are wondering what a ruminant is basically an animal. Think of an animal that has 4 stomachs. So these animals include cows, or we can say cattle, both dairy and beef. When we think of ruminants, we should also think of sheep and goats. Which other ones? But those are the main ones: cattle, sheep, and goats. So when we are talking of the importance of forage in ruminants, we're speaking about those animals in particular. So according to Farmfeed, fiber is essential for maintaining proper rumen function and digestion. A rumen is simply one of the stomachs of a ruminant. Then another importance of forage in a ruminant diet is that it's a source of energy for carbohydrates, crucial in energy production. Then protein, which is important for growth, reproduction, lactation, and overall health. Vitamins and minerals, which are essential nutrients necessary for various metabolic functions. So I'll end here. I had shared this slide. I think most of you, if you're already on Let's Feed, the full presentation is there. So the slides coming before and after the ones I've shared are readily available. You can go through, and if you have questions, you can still ask. So at this point, today, we are joined by an expert from Golden Valley. Let me just unshare this so that we can. So today we're joined by Mukumbuta. He's coming from Golden Valley Agriculture Research Trust. I'll allow him to maybe fully introduce himself. And the key elements of today's lesson is to equip the farmer with the knowledge of the different forages that they can possibly cultivate and grow on their farms. Because it's not all the time that you may want to buy from elsewhere. We may learn that it's possible to cultivate your own, or if you haven't yet gone into ruminant farming, this lesson will help you at least to plan and see, even before your animals come on the farm, it's good to think about what can I grow on this piece of land that the animals that will come later on can benefit from. So that's what mainly this lesson is meant to do, to help you with. And I'll hand over to Dr. Mukumbuta. Thank you.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me. Just give me a shout out if you can. Can you get me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I'm from the Golden Valley Agricultural Research Trust, and GAT is a research institution. We are primarily based in Chisamba, but we also have a center at Batok and Choma. And basically we do risk applied and adaptive research. So that is research that helps to improve the lives of the farmers. So we try to conduct research that can help address some of the issues that that our farmers are facing. So today I'll just briefly introduce GAD. So it's a public-private sector partnership, basically established between the government of Zambia through the Ministry of Agriculture and the Zambia National Farmers Union, ZNFU. And the main reason we were established initially was to try and address needs of farmers that are trying to cultivate crops or grow livestock as a business. And so it was identified that most institutions were focusing on addressing issues, just focusing on food security. But it was realized that farming is a business, so we needed to address the farmers that had a commercial inclination. So not just farming for their own consumption, but trying to farm as a business to raise income and money. So we incorporated under the trust deed, which is one of the laws. So it's not a private company and it's not an institute, but we are incorporated under the trust deed. And basically, we have an independent board of directors which makes decisions on how we operate. I'm hearing someone with music in the background. If you can just mute yourselves.
Dr. Mkombota,
Yes.
maybe before we continue, are you able to hand over the hosting rights? I don't know if you'll be able to do that. Maybe I help you with the background disruptions. I think when I left temporarily, I lost my rights to host.
Okay, let me see if
Maybe that will help so that it doesn't disturb you as you teach.
I have to figure out how to do that. Not sure.
I think for me it happened when you go on the leave button, it prompts you whether you want to leave or leave. What am I saying? It will prompt, the question will come whether you want to leave someone else in charge. So I think that's what I did when I left. I thought, let me leave your account in charge. Maybe you can try and do the same.
I'll come out of the meeting, I'm guessing, if I do that.
Okay. Okay, anyway, it's fine. We can still continue. I just wanted to relieve you of disruptions.
Okay, yeah, we can figure it out as we go.
All right.
So, so in terms of what we do, so as I said, the main thing that we do is applied and adaptive research, where we do research both in crops but also in livestock. And then the livestock also we do research on pastures, but also we do some breeding. For example, we breed different livestock from chickens, goats, dairy animals, as well as beef animals. Then we conduct research on behalf of other institutions. So we normally conduct research at a fee for other organizations, such as private sector, seed companies, and other institutions. Then we believe that it's very important to disseminate information and technologies. So we host a number of technology dissemination platforms. Some of you might have been to the expo, which we normally hold in April. Then we have a seed fair, we have a pasture fair, aquaculture fair, where we show technologies in these different platforms. And then lastly, we are also involved in a commercial production where we produce both livestock as well as crops for sale for income purposes. So coming to today's main topic, it's around feeding our livestock. So I'll just go through a few definitions. Some of these have been covered by the recap that Sliko did earlier on. But basically, we talk about pastures. So basically, when you say pasture, this is land with grass or other plants that are suitable for feeding livestock. And this is either for cutting and harvesting to feed the livestock or for grazing. Specifically, if you're talking about a forage, so these will be crops that will be grown in the pastureland. as mentioned again previously, for purposes of feeding livestock. And this can be either fed directly through direct grazing. So you can plant your forage and then bring your livestock to graze directly, or you can actually harvest that forage, keep it either as hay, for example, or as silage and use for later. Now, if you harvest, you can either make, for example, hay. So you can see on the top right there, there's a photo of it. So hay is a forage, which is made from either grass, legumes, or other plants. So you cut it and dry it, and then you store it for later use. And this is very important, especially in our setup, because there are times in the dry season when there's a shortage of feed, because the natural grass has dried up. So if you are able to harvest and make your hay, then you can store it and have something to feed your livestock later on. And then related to the hay is what we call silage. Now silage is different because the hay is harvested and then dried and then packaged. But silage is normally a fodder that you harvest while it's still green, it's still fresh, and then it is preserved normally through some kind of fermentation and preserved while still fresh. So because it is normally preserved while still fresh, it tends to have more nutrition. So, when you dry your pasture, you lose some of the nutrients. But when you have the silage, so silage is much more nutritious for livestock. And so usually you find that if you're producing dairy, for example, which is a high value livestock, and you want to increase milk production, then normally you might want to have some silage on the side in addition to the hay, just so that there's more nutrition that is available to supplement your livestock. So those are just some brief definitions. Then these forages, they can be categorized basically in different categories. For example, we have what we call annuals. These are the ones that you grow every year. So you plant a seed, it grows within 1 year, and it is harvested. So those will be annual forages. They are also what we call perennials. So these are ones that you plant this year, you can harvest, but it's still going to regrow, and you can reharvest for a number of years depending on the type of species. So some of the grasses, for example, you just harvest once, but you plant once, but you can harvest maybe for 4 or 5 years. Every year you just harvest after it rains or after you do some irrigation. Then there are some grasses. So these are mostly energy giving, but of course they also contain other nutrients. And so we've seen this is just the common grasses, but also some of the improved grasses. But then also we can have some forages that are legumes. And legumes, these are plants that are usually able to fix nitrogen. But to emphasize that legumes are very important because normally they contain a lot more protein and other nutrients. And this is very important for the nutrition. I know that yesterday you were talking about the importance of nutrition. So you have to balance the same way we have to eat balanced diet as human beings. So even the livestock, so you don't want to eat just shima, you want some shima and some beans on the side and a bit of, so even when we're feeding our livestock, we have to be mindful that you don't just want to have grasses alone, but you also want to have some legume species, for example, to provide some extra nutrition for your livestock. So now I'll just introduce just some examples of the different types of forages or pastures. I'll start with some legumes. So, one of the important legumes you can grow is what is called lab. And this is an annual legume. So you grow it every year, you plant and then you harvest. And there's a spacing there. Normally we plant maybe at 8 centimeter between the lines and 20 centimeter within the lines, and you would need roughly about 25 kgs of seed per hectare. And normally we recommend that you also add fertilizer at around 100 kilograms of single superphosphate, or you can also use D-compound, which is the common fertilizer. Now, this fertilization is important because you are growing this for your livestock, but it's actually a crop. So you have to take care of it if you want to maximize the yield, and then you have more biomass, more feed to give to your livestock. And it's quite drought tolerant. So, if even after the rains have gone, usually you find that it remains green for a while. And that is important. Then you can harvest it, use it for silage, or may even directly feed it to your livestock. And so it can be used, as I said, either to make silage or to make hay, but also you can use it in what we call the cut and carry system. So where you cut it fresh, then you go directly and give your livestock, especially where you have zero grazing, for example. So you keep your livestock in a housing, and then you bring the feed. So you can cut this from your field, then take it to where you have kept either your dairy or beef or goats, animals, and then they're going to feed it. And this is quite high in protein. And you can grow, so I've mentioned most of these plants that I'm going to mention. We do have the seed and gut, so we raise seed and then we make it available. We sell it to farmers. So if you've been interested after this, you can get in touch with gut for some of these pastures. Then we have another one, what we call Abon stylo. It's also a legume, and this one is very good also for cattle and goats. And you can either graze your cattle or your goats directly, but you can also cut it and use it for making of silage. And I give there the seed rate, so you roughly need about 2 to 3 kgs per hectare. And we always encourage that you plant most of these at the beginning of the rainy season, because then even if you have irrigation, you make the best use of the rains, the free water. And then you can it will establish, and by the end of the rains, you have enough biomass. But of course, for those of you that, if you wanted to plant in the dry season, it's also possible, but then of course you need irrigation. There's another one, what we call Desmodium silverleaf. Does quite well in terms of growth, quite high yield in terms of biomass. Yes, Liko? I think you raised your hand.
Find out. Yes, I just wanted to find out for the two that we've already that you've just finished going through, and maybe even for this one, do you have the local names? Do we have the privilege of knowing them by their local names so far? Are there some that, what are the common names of the ones you've just mentioned?
So these are the English names, but if you're asking the Zambian names, I'm not sure how to call them in Zambian names. But yeah, okay. These are common names. Some of them have included some scientific names, but you can see here there's a scientific name in brackets, but that's a common name, so it to be called Abon stylo.
Okay.
In English, yeah.
Okay.
Then we have what we call sun hemp. This one, I think in local, they call it sanyembe. I've heard the people call it sanyembe. I don't know what language that is. Yeah, but I think I've heard people in the villages call it sanyembe. So it's also very good legume pasture. And I have to mention that some of these legumes, in addition to being used as food for livestock, they are also good for improving your land, actually, because they fix nitrogen and they can be used as green biomass. So, for example, for those in conservation agriculture, so you can actually use this partly to feed your livestock, but also partly to improve the soil fertility of your land. So sun hemp is also an annual, so and it's quite drought tolerant. So this year, if you come to GART, for example, if you came last month, when most of the crops failed because of the drought, sun hemp was doing quite well, and we were still able to get some good amount of harvest. And usually you need about 40 kilograms of seed per hectare. And if you are feeding this for your livestock, so you can see in the photo there that it has these yellow flowers. Because this one we were growing also for seed production. But it's best that you harvest it if you're going to use it for silage, for example. You harvest it before flowering, because after flowering, some of the nutrients are being used for the reproduction part. So you're better off for most of these. If you want to use it as silage, you cut it before flowering, then you maximize on the nutrient content. So it's going to have more nutrition. Please, if you have questions as I'm speaking, just you can feel free to raise your hand and ask. Then we have velvet beans. Again, this is a very good silage, and also for hay making. But also, as I said, just like the others, can also be utilized for the cut and carry system. It's quite very good for dairy. So incorporating of velvet beans, has shown normally it helps to increase your milk yields in your dairy cows, and it's also quite drought resistant, and usually quite stubborn, which is good if you're growing it for livestock, but sometimes can be a problem if you're using the feed for other things. So it's very good because it's very difficult to actually kill it. So to dry up or another kind of damage. And you can get up to 20 to 30 tons of the green biomass, which is quite a lot of feed for livestock. And for establishment, we recommend that you plant 50 kilograms of seed per hectare. And usually inter-row spacing, 90 centimeters, and within the lines, about almost close to the spacing we use for maize in terms of the spacing. Now I'm going to introduce, so those are some of the key legumes. There are others that I have not mentioned, but those are maybe the main ones. Now I'll turn to some of the grasses. So one of them you can see in the photo there is what we call buffalo grass. Quite nutritious as well, especially if harvested still fresh, either for silage or cut and carry system. But also you can obviously cut it and make it into hay. This one you can also use for direct grazing. So you can grow it and then your livestock can go in there and graze. It is drought tolerant, which is very good. And it can also withstand heavy grazing. So that means even if you graze your livestock there, once there's water, it is still able to grow again. And even after fire, sometimes it will still do quite well. So it will still regrow. In terms of the seed requirement, you need roughly 4 to 6 kilograms of seed per hectare. And usually most of the grasses, the seeds are very small, very tiny seed. So after you plant, well, if you're broadcasting, for example, so you broadcast, or if you're drilling, then it's important to roll. So where you kind of compact a little bit. So if you have a roller, or just if you are using manually, you kind of, either a hoe or whatever it is, kind of pressing a little bit on the surface so that there is contact between the seed and the soil. That way you can maximize germination. Because usually if you don't do that rolling for most of the grasses, because of the size of the seeds are very tiny, so they don't make good contact with the soil. And if they don't make good contact with the soil, your germination is going to be, and the establishment will be a bit poor. So kind of rolling is very important. Just the way we do, I think, in our smaller gardens, after you plant, you press a little bit on the soil so that there's good contact. Then we have Rhodes grass. Maybe this is not the best photo, but Rhodes grass is one of the commonly grown grasses for most livestock farmers. This is one of the grasses you see mostly when you drive around made into hay bales, because it's quite nutritious and it grows quite fast as well. There are different varieties you can find around, but most of them still grow very well. So similar to the buffalo grass, you can either drill or broadcast. And if you're broadcasting manually, normally you will need more seed because you are not precise in applying. So you need about 10 to 15 kilograms. But if you're broadcasting using a machine, a broadcaster, then you are more efficient in distributing the seeds. So you normally tend to reduce the seed application. So you can use about 80 kgs of seed per hectare. Just like the legumes, the nutritive value is highest before flowering. So if you want to cut it for the cut and carry system, or to make your silage, again, it's always preferable to cut it before flowering. You can also graze it during its vegetative stage, but it's not very strong, so you have to avoid, if you're going to do direct grazing, you have to control how many animals you put per unit area, because overgrazing tends to kill the rose grass, or it will reduce the lifespan. So usually, if you plant rose grass this year, you can harvest for up to 5-6 years. But if there's a lot of overgrazing, it might reduce that lifespan maybe to 3-4 years. So you want to maximize, the number of years that you're going to be able to harvest or graze your livestock after you planted the grass. So you control the level of grazing. And for biomass, this is for hay or silage, you can get up to 30 tons with a good management. And again, as I mentioned earlier, even these grasses, they do need to taken care of. So a bit of fertilization or additional manure is always very important, especially after harvest. So if you harvest, then you apply a little bit of fertilizer or manure, then you water, then again you see quite substantial growth. And if you have irrigation, you can actually be able to harvest more than once in a year. So that is a goodness of most of these grasses. So you can harvest maybe after 4 months, then apply a bit of manure, a bit of fertilizer, put water, it's able to regrow again, and then you can harvest and you have something to feed your livestock. Another important grass is teff grass. This one in other countries like Ethiopia, actually, they also use it as food for humans. Those of you that have eaten Ethiopian food, this is what they use to make that injera, that furniture food. But it's very good for livestock because it's high in protein and it's able to produce quite a lot of biomass. However, this one we do not recommend that you graze. So this is best just for making hay or silage. So you cut it, then you process it as silage or hay, not direct grazing. The seed for this, as I said, is used to make food in other countries, but it's also good for chickens. So the chickens, especially indigenous chickens, they do love the seed. And this can also, for those of you who keep chickens as well, so you can grow it, maybe leave a portion where you can have the seed, which you can use for your chickens. And if you have irrigation, you can actually be able to harvest up to 3 times in a year. So you cut, you apply a bit of water, it grows again, and you're able to harvest and have something for your livestock for a good portion of the year. Then we have yes, I think I see a hand.
I just wanted to ask on the teff the one we're just from looking at, what's the key reason you don't graze it? Or what's the main reason you don't recommend animals grazing directly?
So the stamping of the animals normally will kill it. So it's not strong, it's not hardy.
Okay. Okay.
Then we have what we call signal grass. This is one of these that you can plant for also for a number of years. Is what's sometimes called permanent pastures. But anyway, nothing's really permanent because normal production goes down, but you can plant it and harvest for a number of years. And can withstand heavy grazing. And it's quite good for all the large livestock, cattle, goats, and so on. So in addition to direct grazing, of course, you can harvest as hay or cut and carry system, and has actually quite a high protein content, up to 15% under good management, and also quite high fiber content. And as you saw in the introductory slides from yesterday, you need the protein, you need the fiber, you need the minerals, you need the carbohydrates. So a combination of these different grasses then becomes important for good nutrition for your livestock. In terms of the amount of seed, you need about 6 to 8 kgs seed per hectare. Now, by the way, when you look at some of these numbers, 6 to 8 kgs looks quite small. Yes, it's small in weight, but because the seed is very light, so for most grasses, actually, you'll be surprised at 6 kgs of the seed is actually quite a very big sack. It's sometimes you may need two or so bags of kind of that 50 kilograms volume because of the lightness. And you can also quite get up to 30 tons of dry biomass per hectare, which is quite a lot again for your livestock. Then we have panicum. This is one of the fastest growing grasses, and also it's quite bulky. You can see from the photo. This is, I think, just a few months old. So you can see quite bulky in terms of the amount of biomass that you have, and quite also high in nutrition. And also this one is mostly suitable for the cut and carry. So you cut and feed your livestock, or you make hay and or silage. It can be grazed, but because normally it goes quite tall and dense, it's not very good for grazing. But when it's a little bit smaller, then it's probably it's easier for your animals to graze. And you can harvest this maybe every 45 days or so. So talking about less than 2 months, you're able to harvest, especially if you have water. And in terms of the biomass, in terms of the seed, just at 2 to 3 kilograms per hectare, so quite small because again, the size of the seed. Then we have napier grass, or as others call it, elephant grass. Again, very big grass, grows very fast. This one, we don't normally use seed. We use cuttings. So it's propagated vegetatively. So you get smaller cuttings, and then you go and plant the way we do cassava, for example. And also usually this is better for cut and carry. So you cut it, and then you go and feed it to your livestock when it's still fresh. You can harvest between 6 to 8 weeks, every 6 to 8 weeks. But of course, this will depend on water availability. So when you have enough water, you can actually harvest during the rainy season a number of times, make your silage or feed your livestock. And it's actually a very good supplement in the dry season because it's also drought tolerant. So, just maybe with a little bit of water, it will still remain green for a good part of the dry season. Of course, the quality might go down, but compared to other grasses, you still actually maintain some good nutrition and greenness, which maintains the nutrition for livestock. Then we have banana grass. This photo is actually a very young banana grass. This is, I think, about maybe a month or less than 2 months. But it also grows tall. Actually, it grows taller than even the Napier grass. And this is the hybrid from Napier and sorghum. So it's actually more drought resistant than the Napier, and normally can grow faster than the Napier grass as well. And also it's it's in terms of nutrition requirements, so it can grow in different types of soils, even the very poor soils. So it's quite good. It's also propagated by cuttings. So you cut, you vegetatively, you have smaller cuttings, and we need about 25 cuttings per hectare. It's very, very high in protein. So currently there are a lot of efforts, for example, to not only directly utilize it as a feed, but also extract protein that can be used mixed with feed. For example, the way they make feed from soybean. So if you extract the protein, actually it can potentially replace some of this commercial feed as a source of protein in there. Similar also to the Napier grass, you can harvest almost every 6 to 8 weeks. And here I put that up to 5 years, but actually can even go for what, because once you cut it, it's also going to grow from the roots that remain at the bottom. So you keep on harvesting every year. If you have water several times in a year, and it's very difficult to kill this, so it's very good for, even in areas where we have a lot of grazing, for example. As long as there's water, it normally it's able to regenerate. And you can see there the yield is much, much higher under very good management and enough water, enough nutrition, fertilization. You can get up to 80 tons of biomass per hectare. So, just to give you a few tips, if you're going to set up your forages or your pasture, it's very important to start at the beginning of the rainy season, because you want to maximize the free rain. Water is always a challenge for most of us farmers. So as much as possible, plant at the beginning of the rainy season so that your grass or your pasture, whatever it is able to establish. Whether it's these annual pastures or it's the perennial pastures, it's important that you plant at the beginning of the rainy season to give it enough time to actually grow and to maximize, rather than waiting for the end of. We've seen farmers who start planting their pasture at the end of the rainy season. Well, if you have irrigation, that's fine, but even then, it's going to cost you more because pumping water is expensive. So as much as possible, you plant at the beginning of the rainy season. Then sometimes farmers think that these grasses or pastures don't need fertilization. So it's very important to treat them just like another crop. So if you give it some fertilization, good care, even weeding, by the way, most of these grasses need to be weeded. Because if you don't weed, then you are going to have a poor stand, which is going to be mixed with other natural grasses that are not very nutritious. So you can even apply herbicide way before you plant, so that your field is clean, and then you plant, so that there's very good establishment of for a field. Then I know we are talking about the planted pastures, but it's also important, I think, just as a tip, that we have to improve the utilization of our resources that are available. So we've talked about the pastures that you can plant, but there are also this natural grass, for example, which you can utilize even for making hay. So you can actually cut this natural grass and make hay. And then that you can feed your livestock later on in the year. Then there are other resources at the farm, some waste. For example, you have your maize cobs or your wheat straw. You grow wheat or you grow soya after you harvest your soya. That straw is actually, also food for livestock. We can use that to make hay or cut it and mix it with your feed to feed your livestock. So if you do this, then you only buy things that you do not grow. So you have your pastures which you have grown. You have this other so-called waste, either maize cobs or soya straw, which you can utilize as the main source of the feed. Then you just buy the mineral supplements to increase your productivity. And then just to end, so I'll give you just an example here of an example formulation which you can use. This is an example for dairy feed. So you see here that you can actually use either hay or soya straw. So, if you can use maize cobs, which you might have if you're growing maize for food consumption. So that those maize cobs that remain after you remove your grain, you can actually grind that and use that as part of your feed. Maize bran, of course, we know. Then you can mix with soya cake, and then you buy the other similar ingredients, salt, DCP, or the premix. So this is an example formulation for a 50 kilogram, and then you can utilize this for your dairy animals, and it's going to enhance your meat production. So as I come to an end, as I mentioned that at GAT we do host a lot of these dissemination meetings. So for those of you that know, we normally hold what we call the seed fair in October. So this year we have the seed fair from 18th to 19th of October in Chisamba. So if you want, so this is mostly for the crops, not necessarily for the pastures, but also sometimes there are some pastures on display. And then towards the end of October again, 31st October to 1st November in Choma, where we have our livestock center. We have what we call the National Pasture Fair, where different types of pastures will be demonstrated, both by ourselves, but also other private companies. And you can learn a lot about how to manage your pasture and grow your pasture. So if you have time, you are able to attend, please come. I've seen a message in the text, in the chat. Do you have seeds for most of these? For a number of these, we have them at GAT, so you can reach out to us at GAT. This year, because of the drought, some of them might be a challenge, but normally we always have, and we still have for some of them. So you can reach out and then we'll let you know which ones we have. Another message, will you avail the presentation or recording? Silico, maybe you can answer that one. I can share maybe a PDF to you, Silico, not to the PowerPoint, and then you can decide to share with your those that have attended. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you. That would be very helpful. The recording, I'm not sure I think you've managed to record, right?
I think so.
I think it's still in progress. I had a question as well. I think I had several questions. I hope I'll be able to maybe remember, but one of them is in case somebody is wondering what's the what are the requirements for somebody who would like to bale their hay? Let's say they've grown one of these grasses or one of those legumes.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need machinery? What's involved in coming up with that bale of hay in case maybe somebody wants to grow it for sale or for storage for future use?
Yeah. So maybe actually, as I answer your question, actually baling of hay has become quite a good business now. I know farmers in Southern Province that are making some good amount of money. So they cut the grass and bale it, and then they're able to sell it. So normally to cut it, yes, you need it. Normally you'd need some machinery because you have to cut. So you have a cutter, a tractor with that cutter, so it cuts. And then you have a baler which comes and rolls, those round big one. Normally you need a baler to make that round, and then you tie it and then keep. So now, of course, I mean, of course, at a smaller scale, you can do this manual as well, but that of course requires a lot of labor. It's always normally, you need maybe a tractor with a cutter that cuts the grass, which is a mechanized harvesting, and then you have a baler that is going to make it in that shape.
Okay. Okay. And looking at the season we're in, where there's shortage of rain, how exactly does one go about an irrigated way of growing these grasses? What sort of irrigation system would be required?
It depends on what you are growing, first of all, of course. But for most pastures, probably an overhead system is better. You can either sprinklers. I have seen some farmers growing grass with drip. But then sometimes with the drip, because then it's very difficult to remove and also to harvest, especially if you're harvesting using a machine. That means you have to remove your drip lines so they're not cut. And but you can use most of the different available irrigation systems, but overhead sprinklers, rain guns, they can be utilized to irrigate.
Okay,
What is the best seed you'd advise for feedlot animals? Feedlot animals, the napier and banner grass are quite good because one, they grow quite fast. So you can easily go there, cut, harvest, and feed. And also they produce a lot of biomass. And also they are quite high in protein. But also don't forget the legumes, because legumes naturally have more protein than the grasses. So a combination of some of these high yielding grasses, such as banana and napier, but also a bit of some of the legumes, either velvet beans or sun hemp. Then you can use that to make your silage and then feed use it in your feedlot. What are the challenges that most small-scale farmers face? Because these grasses are mostly grown by commercial farmers. The challenge, most of these you can grow them. Of course, like anything else, you need resources, right, to grow. So naturally, the big guys have more resources. They have irrigation, they have water, they have the machinery. So if you're going to cut, you need a bit of machinery to harvest, to bale. And so you may not have as a small scale. But now there are smaller balers, for example, smaller cutters that you can get that can enable you to be able to still manage to grow even at a smaller scale level. Any other questions? I think that is the last question I see in the chat box.
I'm trying to just refer to questions that were sent prior to the meeting. Just a minute.
I just have a contribution as I was looking for maybe the other questions. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes. So with regards to the question that what are the challenges that most small-scale farmers face? Say because the grasses are mostly grown by commercial farmers. I think also it's issues to do with awareness. I think our small-scale farmers, when it comes to enterprises that they can venture into, they only go for those that they know that they'll make something in terms of income. I think most they're not aware that they could actually have a fortune out of these pastures. So like Dr. Mkumbuta mentioned, I think he's talked about the biomass that can be harvested from most of these pasture legumes and also pasture grasses. For example, once rhodes grass is established in a field, one is able to harvest about 120 to 124 bales, for example, per hectare, which is quite significant. And if someone, I think, translated that to income, that would be something that I think the small scale farmers would significantly benefit from. I think largely also it has to do with awareness. They're not aware of what they can get out of pasture production. Thank you.
Yeah, and to give you just an idea, as Mr. Mzemba has mentioned, so if you have 120 bales per hectare, and you know, this year one bale is going as high as 500 kwacha.
Wow.
So you know, so in some areas, so you know, that's some good money there. So so you know, so if you can, you actually, you know, you can actually make some good money. In the normal years, yeah, this year of course that fund is a bit high because of the shortage. But even in a normal year, you find a bale for 300. So even if you put that at 300 times, you know, 120 bales, that's you a good amount of income compared even to some of the money you can make per hectare from some of the crops that we grow.
Okay. And maybe I missed the point. Did you mention whether does GAT commercially sell these seeds?
Some of them, a number of them we commercially sell. So we have banana grass cuttings right now. We have a lot of banana grass cuttings. If you want, you can come and get. We have some seeds, for example, for sun hemp. We have seed for road grass. So a number of them, yes, we do commercially sell. And also, if you want very huge quantities, we can also actually produce for you on order. So yes, we do make available. This year, of course, was a bad year because of the drought. So we may have smaller quantities than usual, but yeah, we do have them.
Okay. And then in comparison, because I know that on the market as well, it's quite flooded with seeds coming from Brazil. Anyway, seeds coming from outside of Zambia. So when we compare, what's your take on comparison in terms of performance? Do these grasses that we would grow, I mean, what do I want to ask?
So I mean,
is somebody who's growing seed that is from outside going to achieve the same things as somebody buying seed from within? Is our local seed just as good as the imported one? Maybe that's what I wanted to.
Well, I mean, we have a tendency sometimes to not appreciate local things, but that's just a perception. Most of the local things are sometimes even better. I mean, first of all, you are sure that it can grow in our environment. So you don't know the imported seed, what kind of environment it was produced. So you're not sure if it will survive in that kind of harsh environment, our soils. But when you get locally produced seed, it has been grown locally, so it's adaptable to the environment. So usually you can get, and you know, and sometimes usually also it's cheaper. So I think there are more benefits to actually buying local than imported. And also, of course, let's not forget that we need to support our local industry. So we want even local farmers to be growing seed, pasture seed, which they can sell to other farmers. So I think we have to promote local production so that we're not dependent on imports.
Thank you. I think I've seen there's one more question in the inbox.
Where can we get the tractor, grass slashers, rake, and baler? I think some of these you can find at Saro. There are a number of these dealers, I think, that have some of these things. I may not have the actual names of the companies, but I think if you check most of these major dealers of equipment, they'll have them. And you can also reach out to us later on. You can maybe try and find the contacts which maybe can be shared.
Okay, Doc, I just wanted to get your permission. There's a screen I would want to share, but it's only, I'm only allowed if this one can. Okay, I just wanted to show you the questions that we had and just to. So I was all the questions that came through, but I think looking at the presentation, most of them have been answered. I'm sure the owners of these questions will be able to view them when they watch the recorded version. The ones in black in particular are the ones that were for you for today, to learn more about pastures, knowledge on pasture feeding, to learn and share ideas. I think we've exhausted everybody's questions, unless there's one more where we can close for the night.
There's a question in the chat. Which one would you go for, beef or dairy? Well, I mean, every enterprise is profitable. So this has to go with, of course, first of all, your interest. To make it in any business, you have to have interest in that specific business. So which one is of your interest? Do you prefer beef or dairy? But maybe just to highlight the differences between beef and dairy, dairy is more high maintenance because if you don't feed your animals even just for 1-2 days, your milk production is going to go down. So dairy can be sometimes a bit more high maintenance. However, dairy also gives you income. You can make money on a daily basis because if you're milking cows, you're milking every day, and every day you are selling milk. Every day you are making some income. For beef, you only sell when it reaches a certain market weight. So I mean, it's not either this one or the other one. Both of them, and there's a lot of. I think at national level, we are still not meeting the milk requirements for our country. So there's still a lot of room for more farmers to produce milk. The population is growing, the demand for milk is growing. So it's a good business, but the same goes for dairy as well. There's a lot of room for you to make a lot of money. Yeah, so that would be my comment on that.
Okay, thank you so much. And then about the fairs, are these events chargeable? What's the?
It's free. It's free to attend for farmers if you want to learn. It's free to attend. We do not charge. Actually, we want more farmers to come and learn. So these are meant to be available for free to farmers to attend.
Okay, all right. No, thank you so much, Dr. Mkumbuta. I hope one day we can meet. It's funny that we've held this and I have no idea what you look like. But
yeah,
thank you
for. I'm sure we've met somewhere before. But maybe
okay.
many
Okay. No, thank you so much for, first of all, accepting to do this for us. It's very rare that farmers have the pleasure of being explained to by people from such institutions. And so I hope we can do more of such in future as well. I hope as GAT you've benefited, or even as Dr. Mkumbuta you've benefited. Thank you also to Mr. Kelodi Muziamba for allowing this to happen. I think if you didn't accept this initially, we wouldn't be here. So thank you as well for finding time to join us. And then also, I'm grateful for the people that made it. I've seen there's Sasizo, Vanavangu Farms, Madam Bernadette, Boas, Dr. Singogo, there's DSM, Gertrude, Gibson, Madam Joyce, Michael, Manida, Sly, and Stephen. Thank you very much for listening in. I hope you've found what you wanted. I hope you've learned something, and not just learning, but I hope you can put it in practice one day or for now. The chat keeps on. Oh, okay. So great presentation, Doc. Much appreciated. Would do better than before. Thank you, Mr. Zulu, as well. You're welcome. And feel free to express whatever topic you would like, especially one that's maybe concerning gut. We can always call on them again. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. Unless there's any other question. Thanks, Dr. Mfungwe.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.